Creative Moments season finale, season 2, episode 10. I'm Dante Bullhauer. I am a photographer.
Jamie Bullhauer. I'm a writer.
And this is a podcast where we talk all things creativity. Hope you guys had a good New Year and a happy holidays and all that stuff. And we're here for season finale, season 2. Let's
celebrate.
All right, so today we are talking about flow. Now, this isn't what Jamie has in his hair. Maybe you could say that about me, but we're talking about the creative flow. And
I'm going to get a haircut later this week.
I got mine in prep for this podcast.
Yes, I know you did. I saw that.
So creative flow, it's something that I think both of us have kind of been learning about recently. I'm reading an audiobook listening to an audiobook that kind of talked about flow. And I know you were just kind of prepping for this episode while I was setting up the stuff. So what is flow to start? Right.
So if you don't, Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, and if you've ever seen his last name, you know how hard that is to process. Has a book. Maybe you could find this audiobook. Has a TED Talk and everything, and has investigated, and in his beginning research and stuff, he concentrated on creative people. And what was it like to be in the creative moment? See what I did there? And in his research and things like that, he discovered that people are generally very happy, productive, and create really good work when they're in flow. And again, his research and stuff started with the creatives, but the idea is a state of flow is when you kind of lose yourself, you're not worried about things, you're just caught up in the moment, which is a connection to actually my word for this year also. And he has to break it down because of psychology, and has this chart and a graph. And optimal experience of flow is when your skill set and how hard it is, whatever you're doing, how challenging it is, kind of meet. And when you're just on the edge of the challenge, so where your skill set is stretched, you get lost in your work, and it could be whatever. Because I know what I wanted to talk about as an athlete, that experience too. What's really interesting is that what he really wanted to do out of this is how can we bring more joy and happiness to people? Because in the bottom part of the quadrant, so when your skill set is not very strong and you're not challenged very much, you experience boredom, apathy, things along that really do kind of create an unpleasant day. And then there's more if your skill set's really strong, but you're not being challenged, that kind of has some of the same. But if your skill set is really low and you're being challenged greatly, you get frustration, you get anger, because your skill set doesn't match what's being asked of you. So his theory is that our lives can be more joyful and experience more happiness if we find our ways into that flow state a little bit more, and all the things that we kind of do.
Yeah. So the audiobook I'm listening to is 101 Essays to Change the Way You Think by Brianna Wiest, I think. I can't even pronounce that. So
that's okay.
Feel bad. And it talks about how you get into that stage where you kind of lose track of time. You're just so locked into what you're doing that's really all that matters in that moment. And especially now where we have so many distractions that are trying to consume our energy and our time, getting into that flow state, I feel, is a lot harder, which is partially why I started waking up at like 5, because I'm not getting any notifications, no emails, no texts, all that. It's just me. It's quiet. There's nothing else going on. There's nothing outside to distract me. I can just get into that flow state for just a couple hours before like the rest of the world wakes up and my phone I start getting emails, things like that. And so finding that time was really crucial for me, because there's like a study that we're really only truly productive for like 4 hours a day. And usually that's in the morning for us. Like we're only truly I guess we're most productive for about 4 hours a day, and then we tend to kind of that productivity just drops.
And I agree and disagree, but I do agree that we only have so much energy in a day. Even if we drink more coffee or we do, like, in that sense that, real honest energy that's connected to our muse, our soul, whatever. Like, yes, that part I kind of agree. In just the morning, I would argue a little bit no, but I understand the
For
point.
me, it's the morning.
Yes.
But, so it talked about that, and it kind of goes back to what we kind of mentioned in a couple past episodes, where a lot of people think that the flow state or the motivation or inspiration or whatever to just lock in and do a project will come to them. But studies actually show that motivation follows you doing something. And then once if you don't want to do it and you just start doing it, then your motivation will keep you going or keep you doing another project and things like that. So getting into the flow is really not something that just kind of happens. You kind of have to, at the beginning, just force your way into it a little bit, and then it just gradually just kind of works its way there, and that motivation comes with it, and that flow comes with it, and things like that.
And in my state, so last night I stayed up to work on a blog post that I've had in my head, and to a degree, my routine is I get my computer, I open up, I have a playlist for writing, put my headphones on, kind of hit play, and it's kind of, I set up or I prime the experience. I know that this is where I'm headed to write, okay, and it just kind of allows me to get into it, and then I start writing the first couple of words, and there I go. I'm in to the state, maybe not always elevated, because it's hard to not be distracted in a sense to our world, but it gets, I got lost I stayed up pretty well and got it all out, and it's getting, edited at the moment, so.
Yeah, and so I think for those listening, watching, whatever, what are kind of maybe 2 or 3 things that you kind of talked about setting up the environment to be primed for, getting in and getting work done. What are some things that people can do to kind of, again, that it doesn't just come to you, but kind of make that environment so that it's easier to kind of get into that flow, easier to just buckle down and get the work done? What are some things that people can do to...
Well, if it's somebody who's relatively trying new things, or trying to find their niche, or doing, even whatever it could be, because you could get into flow state even at work. I mean, it just... but if you're being creative and you're new to this area, you have to be willing to try things. Unpopular opinion, and I disagree that you've mentioned it, we do get inspired. We get inspired. I have my notebook, but you're not going to produce a lot of work if you're just waiting for it to happen. So you've got to also figure out who you are as a creative and what works, what doesn't. You're finding out that the morning time is a great time for you. I tend, probably just because of life routine, to be at night because everybody's finally asleep. The house is quiet.
Yeah, it's quiet. There's no distraction.
There's no distraction. I put on my head. It's calming. Yes, I actually have a cup of coffee even at that time.
Yeah, that's weird.
But that's when I can get and tap into it. So you have to be willing to try things, see what works. Step out of your comfort zone, because I'm sure getting up early in the morning
sucks.
Yeah.
It's terrible. Hate it.
But it gets results. And you have to decide, is this important enough to me that I want to actually put in a little work and find what that is. Some people write with music, some people don't. Okay, that's not we don't have to have a debate about that. All right, cool. Some people work at it in the morning, some people work it better at night, and things like that. Yeah.
Yes, like obviously getting distractions away from you will obviously help that. But the other thing I think is kind of important, you won't always, not every time I wake up early do I get into that flow state and I just grind and get a lot of stuff done. Sometimes it's just not like I can't focus in and get into that mode. So the discipline to just keep going and to keep doing it lasts. If you can develop that and develop, hey, no matter if I'm really super engaged or super psyched on this, I'm just gonna do it, whether I'm locked in or whatever. I'm gonna make sure that it gets done somehow. Developing that discipline lasts a whole lot longer than motivation ever will. And if you can just develop kind of a routine where you're like, okay, I'm getting up at this time, or I'm staying up and I'm gonna start writing at this time, whatever. I'm gonna do that routine, get the coffee, get the music, whatever. The chances of you kind of just being able to get that work done and have time kind of fly by are a lot higher if you kind of set yourself up and you know that is going to happen, instead of just kind of like, oh, okay, let's try and lock in here. It's like 2 p.m. I don't usually work at this time, but let's kind of developing that discipline, that routine can really help induce it, I guess.
And you may not ever be in peak flow all the time, but the idea of, because you usually feel good afterwards, you usually, and his real purpose was to bring happiness. How can we find ways to bring joy and happiness to people in different ways? Okay, and he just happened to start his research with creatives, and the book is actually more towards that idea. And so the routine can help once you find it, what actually works for you. But I think even through that, when you're done, you're still in that quadrant of there, to where he's saying that you feel fulfilled, you feel good, you feel you've done something. Sometimes, again, we've talked about that. I've poems, blogs. Some of them just come like really well. Others, I get the word count down, and I know I've got some work ahead, but I feel it's like, yeah, I'm doing what I love to do. So here's an interesting question, because he's got some interest, especially his TED Talk, of quotes from creative. You especially, you're still not too far away from your athletic career, but athletes talk about this a lot too. They'll talk about a game to where the hoop seems so big, or, okay, so we'll do a little compare and contrast here, if you remember. Is there a difference in that flow state? Can you think about as a creative, but then as an athlete, and think about those games to where...
First of all, Skol, go Vikings. They play the Giants the day we're recording this. So you guys will know if they win or lose. But he's still in good spirits today, so hopefully they win. But athletically, thinking about it, just as you asked that question, there are similarities of kind of like seeing the bigger picture. Like a lot of athletes talk like the hoop is huge, whatever. I was never that like prolific of a scorer, but when I would get into the flow, when our team we're just clicking, I would just see plays kind of as they happen. So like I can bring up several examples of, like, I don't know if you remember junior year, the Holdridge game where I tipped it, ran it down, threw it backwards to Gavin.
Yes.
So like those types of plays, I was in flow state that game 100%. It was my first home game of varsity, whatever. I was locked in. And so, like, things like that, I knew where that pass was going, and I knew that I still sat back there because I knew that I'd be able to jump that pass, because I knew that if I sat there, he was going to throw it, and I'd be able to go get it. And so, same thing, kind of like just 2 days ago, I was working on a graphic, and I just kind of, there are times when I just get into that flow that I kind of see the graphic and see the finished product as I'm kind of creating it, and I know, like, what it's going to look like basically before I even make it. So I know exactly what to do, almost exactly where to put things, instead of kind of experimenting sometimes when I don't really know kind of what the theme or the design is going to look like. That graphic, I was like, I know exactly what I want this to look like. I know I want to have this here, that there. I want to have this reflection here. And so just kind of seeing kind of one step ahead, seeing the court differently, or the document more clearly and just a little bit ahead. Those are kind of the similarities that I see between between the two
Okay, because I know you didn't watch TED Talk that I sent.
right now.
Okay, so what's interesting in his TED Talk, he's talking to a composer, and the composer talks about how the music just came and his fingers just kind of made the song. And I'm just bringing that up to point out that this flow state and this idea is unique for each creative or each person or each moment. Like if you remember being a kid and we're just playing outside and you lose track of time, but the components are all kind of the same. Everybody kind of experiences and gets that sense of a loss of themselves to a degree, or seeing things, and it just come and it just like, and I think that's because of that skill set being here, the challenge being here, and you get that perfect storm. That what you're doing is just clicking, with your athletic ability, your graphic design, my writing. Even if you're at work and you're, been asked to make a presentation, and I've actually even seen it in the classroom to where I've designed some lessons and stuff, and like the students say, "Man, the hour just went by." It's like, yeah, but I've also seen where they've gotten really frustrated because maybe what I've asked them to do is beyond their skill set. And that has its own issues. That's educational philosophy and some stuff, but still, I see that, and I try, even in the classroom and even to try to do things that get you into that moment, and you're not, thinking about your Snapchat or different things along that line.
Yeah, and so kind of going back to the audiobook that I read, talking about flow, being fully present in that moment. We spend, especially now, so much time either worrying about the past or thinking about the future. And like the most basic interpretation of flow is you are fully in the present moment. And it talks about how if you can get into that more often and just be in the moment, because the only thing that you ever actually have is now. You don't have the future. You had the past. You don't have it anymore. The only thing that you can possess currently is the current moment.
Yeah.
And I just thought that was so just kind of enlightening to think about. Yeah, I sit here and think about like what my business is going to look like, but all I have is now. I'm making this graphic now. So let's be in this moment. Let's think about like now. And it's like social media, all this stuff tries to get you to think about the past, worry about the future, show moments from the past, all this stuff. And it's just becoming increasingly more rare for people to be in that present moment. And it does bring up, it talks about you're on your phone, you're wasting away that moment.
Yeah. Oh, if you remember, I talked about that in class before.
And you're wasting away that moment for a screen, and for people want to have a real in-person connection with you, and you're sacrificing that moment for talking to someone over Snapchat or whatever.
Yeah.
And so I think it's important for anybody, and we talk. It doesn't have to be creative, athletic. It can literally be anything. It can be baking or crafting or just literally anything at work, whatever, that can help you just be in that present moment.
And if you feel like you're overcome, and sometimes it comes out as stress or and people might disagree, but honestly try it, because we kind of do this with junior high football a little bit, is you just set yourself a time limit, and because it's up here, it's in your heart, it's in your mind, and that has a habit also. So just set a time limit, 30 minutes, all I'm going to do is this. Set the timer. Once the timer goes off, and again, we see like in the classroom, that's where the bell rings, and we're like, oh, but you just have to sometimes practice that. And like even like in junior high football, what I mentioned that just a little bit, we'll go, okay, we're going to try to run 5 perfect plays right now. So you're going to concentrate. You're going to focus on these 5 plays. And let's not jump off sides. Let's hit the right, and just practice with them so that becomes, okay, a perfect play becomes a habit. But we don't, as like all practice for an hour and a half, we're going to be perfect. No, right now, these 5 plays. This is what you're focused on to where, type of thing. And you can build that mentally and emotionally also. And so if you feel like you're overthinking lots of things, you're too much in the future or too much in the past, holding on to things, just start 30 minutes. I'm just going to write. I'm going to paint. I'm going to, do whatever. Because that focus, and it is interesting, he has a TED Talk about flow, and he even talks about his research that watching good television can get you into a flow state because it's something that is challenging your learning. Now, just stuff for entertainment, you get like her, but he's like I love the philosophy that's about being and having a happier life. Because a good television, good apps we can get there, but the state of that is that you're not worried about stuff in the future or in the past or like, oh, what's my next? Or did anybody like my very short story on Twitter today? That kind of angst that you get in what social media has breeds for us to that degree.
Yeah, it's definitely something that is kind of coveted now. And so what are, like, if you're kind of struggling to get into that flow, if you just for whatever reason can't kind of just get into it, what are some things maybe that you do to kind of help? Maybe like for me personally, if I wake up early and I'm just working, I just can't lock in, I'll sleep for 20 minutes or I'll take a break, I'll turn off my computer. Sometimes because I'm just tired, but
yeah,
I'll just step away from the computer for a little bit and I'll say, okay, 15-minute break, we're just gonna like scroll social media, or we're just gonna like sit outside for 15 minutes, just take a break, come back, and then kind of re-evaluate and then try and get back in. So is there anything that you do when you just kind of are struggling to find that flow state that helps you kind of?
Well, I can tell one thing, and like lots of even like Stephen King and Wordsworth and stuff, is if I don't walk, if I don't get out into nature and some people might think, because I listen to music when I do that, okay? Some people are like, well, that's not, you should listen. It's my life. Okay, that's what that's what happens. But getting out and just having that time that I don't have a watch. I kind of know my route. I kind of know the time, but I am decompressing. I am thinking. And sometimes I get inspired. And we've talked about, like, I'll use my Google voice part and just put down ideas as I'm walking because the muse hit, and I would come back to that. Other people, meditation, getting relaxed. Because I think what keeps you out of flow state is some type of stress, some type of thought, some type of, in your case, even taking a nap. If you're tired, you're tired. Your brain doesn't have enough energy to work.
Yeah, and I'm just thinking about, I'm tired. Like, I'm tired. I want to go to bed. What?
Yeah.
So, yeah, and a lot of studies actually show that just whether it's walking, pacing, like you talked about in English class, just like
doodling.
Doodling until you get that, just like little movement can help kind of induce that flow state. It could be jogging, even running, just kind of just moving your body in some way. Act like you're writing circles on a paper until you come up with that idea, or taking a walk and then figuring it out there. Doing kind of a subconscious movement helps kind of kickstart your brain into that kind of flow state. Yeah. So that's something that...
Because sadly, when we feel frustrated, this is our movement.
Yeah.
And like that does not produce, that just drains. So
there are very few times that I go on social media and exit the app and feel inspired. I mean, there's some cool photos that I'll see. There's some cool content, some ideas maybe. Very few times am I actually like, all right, I'm fulfilled by that. Now let's do this. So there's definitely a value to being able to be in that present moment, in that flow state. And I hope we shared kind of some tips for you guys to help if you don't really know how to get in there, if you need kind of some tips just on the flow state. That's kind of our thoughts on it. We hope you guys enjoyed. We're already done with season 2 of the Creative Moment. That means we've been doing this for 40 weeks-ish.
Yeah.
Almost a full year. So with that, hope you guys enjoyed. Subscribe, like, comment, do all the things. We'll link that TED Talk there.
As we did social media, please do all the social media things.
Engage with us on social. Just
go Vikes.
Yeah, go Vikings. Beat the Giants. We will see you guys in season 3 in 2 weeks.